Welcome to the third episode of Clash Cast. I'm joined by Marcin Skok, my fellow partner in crime, on this Memorial Day weekend, and we have some rumors and speculations regarding Microsoft and Apple that we'd like to share and review. And Marcin's going to be in with the Microsoft stuff, which, I think is a little bit boring. So for the more interesting stuff, stick around. But I'm sure Marcin's ready and eager to begin. So why don't you take us away, Marcin?
I am very eager, Nick, and I would say the Apple stuff is not too much more exciting. It's actually very reminiscent of some stuff that Microsoft has done in the past. But anyway, let's continue. And what we have here is not a lot of news in the past few weeks from both companies, but that's natural. It's kind of a lull in between events. On the Microsoft side, what we have is some leaks. A few app stores. I don't know how app testing usually works, but apparently on the Windows Phone side and on the iPhone side, there have been beta invites going out to some people for a set of 5 or 6 apps that kind of don't stay in that Word, Excel, PowerPoint paradigm that we've always used to. Word Online, Word for Mac, Word for iPhone, Word whatever. But these seem like new ideas, or at least somewhat remixed ideas. So the most traditional one, I think, is called Flow for Outlook, and that's been spotted on the iPhone so far. And I'll just read the description. You can use Flow with anyone. It's email, reach anyone with an email address, and all conversations and other things also in Outlook. You use Flow and Outlook interchangeably, so you can basically jump between conversations. And the way they do it is that they kind of strip out all of the junk that you usually get, like when you're responding to emails. So if you're like in an email thread, you get all the like signatures and things and like forwards. So basically this kind of converts your emails into a chat-like format, as if you were like in Messenger. So it kind of makes emails more personal, easy to read through, especially if you have someone that is just is like a professional relationship and you don't talk to them on texting or through some kind of messaging service. So I think it's interesting that they're trying to kind of make this, not innovate on email, but at least give another take on that. And there were 2 apps that were rumored alongside this, where this philosophy of stripping away like all of the, not the junk, but all of the extraneous elements and just going to the core of whatever the idea is. So that is email for Flow. There's Flip and Highlander, and Flip is for document collaboration. There aren't any details on this, but there's also Highlander, which is on project management. So it's not like Microsoft Project or some other software. It's supposed to be very simple, so you can just have like a small project within the app and easily reassign and assign tasks. So though that's like the first set. Any comments, Nick? I think this is just a way.
So are these are not designed to replace their equivalents, right? Because that seems like they're limiting functionality to make it simpler, but then, you're just going to go back to the more full-fledged when you want to do anything serious.
Yes, I think, or at least more serious. I think, let's say that you and I are having an email thread, and I respond to it. I feel if the email thread gets, we're obviously like in some kind of conversation where we need like 10 or 15 emails. It's a lot easier to use something like this. So they even say in the description, together you can use Flow and Outlook interchangeably to participate in the same conversation. So I guess somehow Flow dynamically cuts out the signature and all the information below the line of the actual message and just combines them into like a thread. I think that's the idea. So yeah, it's interesting. It's like a different way of looking at productivity, which is kind of the theme with these apps. There's nothing here that's for, let's say, video streaming or gaming or anything more home-related, automated house things or anything like that. But that's the general theme.
It's interesting. We'll see where it goes.
Yes, that's the safe response. To see where it goes. But that's all we can do. Office Now is apparently Bill Gates' pet project. He said when he returned to the company with Satya as his advisor, he said he was working on a specific project, and this showed up a few months ago. It was very unclear what it was. It used to be called Work Assistant, but now it's called Office Now, and it'll be on Windows Phone, iOS, and Android, so again, cross-platform. And it helps users with tasks. We have a few screenshots. They'll be up on the video if you're watching the video version of this. And basically, it's sort of like Siri/Cortana, where you have an assistant that is more that can reach into your documents, into your emails. And let's say that I want to share a planning deck with Nick. Let's say we're starting up some project or we're planning this podcast, and I made a PowerPoint deck. Then I don't have to, on my phone or on my tablet, because I'm assuming these are first tablet and phone apps, I don't have to go into my files and search for them. I would just say to the app, send my planning deck to Nick, and then Nick would get it. It would do the entire function like that. So it's kind of consolidating these like mini steps into natural language, or you can type in the command, and I think it's just extending that idea of Cortana or whatever they're doing being more of a productivity assistant than maybe some of the other things, again, that are maybe a little bit more general purpose. So
That's very interesting. I thought Bill Gates' pet project was turning human waste into clean drinking water.
I think that's 70% of his time, all that stuff, his philanthropy. I think they even, like, when they first announced he was coming back, they gave a percentage figure. I'll be spending like 30% of my time with Microsoft as an advisor, and then it leaked that he had a pet project and he talked about it on Reddit. But, he's a cool guy. He can do like more than one thing at once, unlike most of us, I would say.
Of course.
Yeah. Revolve, not very sexy. Basically, if I have a meeting with you, Nick, and I've never met you before, or
Does Microsoft and sexy ever belong together?
Revolve. If I'm meeting you, Nick, and I don't know what we're talking about, or I need a quick update on where we've met last, this kind of collects the information from both my calendar, past events where I might have met you before, documents that we might have collaborated on, and somewhat like that. Again, not a lot of details. The next thing, it's one clip, and this is very clear, and I think this is a very strong and very simple use case. It's just a cloud-based clipboard. So if I clip an image or text from my phone, I can copy and paste it onto my computer or my tablet. And I'm not sure there is much out there that does that, or at least reliably. I haven't heard of some kind of solution, but it does sound somewhat useful.
That is very interesting. I always have to like text myself or Facebook message myself to get things between devices that could be easily put on a clipboard. As long as the implementation is smooth, I think that is very interesting.
And I think they'll have to strip off the Microsoft branding for you to use it, but
of course. Well, I'll wait till Apple comes and does it.
All right, so we'll have to wait another decade, but it'll work somewhat at that point. Dialer for Link. This is boring, but if, let's say, you and I have a voice meeting on their business platform,
Microsoft and boring? No,
Skype
never.
for business, your jokes need a little bit of refreshing, like Apple's design does. You can join voice meetings and not have to have a data connection. It basically, let's say you're out in the middle of nowhere and you forgot that you need your PC or it ran out of battery and you only have your phone, but you're attending this meeting that's ostensibly a internet meeting, like how we're on Skype. What this does is it uses your phone connection, your voice, and it kind of, through some magic, provides the password and all your credentials to log in so you can just join. So it's just like a nice thing for business people. And then Instanote, which I don't understand, but I heard that this is somewhat what Evernote does. It allows you to take voice notes without losing details from actual conversations. So I'm not sure exactly what that is. Maybe it's some kind of logical, let's say of your note-taking software open and you're recording at the same time. It might synchronize your voice with whatever you're typing, so you kind of can have a timeline based on what part of your notes this voice or recording was from. So I guess that's interesting. I just think that that's just a function that their competitors have and they're trying to get into OneNote. So that's a quick overview. I think to summarize, they're trying to get away from their old war horses because those don't really need that much updating anymore. It's just Word, Excel, PowerPoint. How much better can you make word processing or, slideshows / spreadsheets? Besides they're going to do real-time collaboration in their apps. I think that's the big next thing, but I can't see far past that how much more you can improve these functions. So probably more focusing on smaller tasks and productivity and getting people to, if I don't need OneNote, Word, or anything, but I hear that one clip is cool, I'll at least use that, and they might build on that later to get me to use more of their products or maybe that's enough for them. They at least get someone in their ecosystem because they have to have, I don't know, an account or something like that. I think that's just the cross-platform selling across all the platforms. So that's Microsoft. We won't hear much for a while. I think next up we'll have a device announcement. From what I hear, it'll probably be the Surface Pro 4 or the high-end Lumia phones that everyone's been, well, everyone, I mean, the few Windows Phone fans on the planet have been
all three of you guys
waiting for. Yeah, so that's what I have for today. Nick, let's roll the ball to you. What have you got?
All right, fantastic. WWDC, the moment everybody has been waiting for since they were a young child. It'll take place, hopefully, most expectedly on the 8th of June, and Tim Cook will let us know what Apple's been up to and what new toys we can expect in the next few months. Largely, WWDC has always been focused on software, but there's, a couple of hints here and there on new hardware releases, which come from time to time at WWDC. So let's start with the main software that we're going to hopefully see an update to, what we're rumored to see an update to. Obviously, we'll start with the most important software for Apple, which unfortunately has now been deemed iOS. So iOS 9. It is codenamed to be Monarch. And one of the main changes that I'll first like to just get off the bat is the fact that they may have been switching the font for iOS 9 and OS 10.11.
You said that in a very careful or slow tone, as if you were not so excited about this.
I am not so excited about this. So they came out with the San Francisco font, which is a homegrown font. Apple made it for the Apple Watch. And it was great that they created a new font for the Apple Watch because of its small screen size. Using something, like Helvetica, when you get into the light fonts and get super small, is not the most readable. And I think San Francisco on the watch works perfectly. It's a great looking font, and it's very, very readable, which is key for something like, a smartwatch. However, moving this font to iOS 9 and OS 10, not too thrilled about it. I'm a huge fan of the current system fonts that they have in place. In fact, when they had iOS 7 in the beta version, they had an even lighter form of the font that they use currently, and I really enjoyed that. And then when they switched to the darker font for supposedly more readability, I was like, whatever. But I got over it since we're almost in iOS 9, and I spent a couple of years with it. But yeah, I'm not excited about San Francisco porting over. I just don't think it'll look nice, but I don't know.
Maybe it's not look nice. I think from what I've seen, when you blow it up, it just looks like Arial or something like that. I think when it's small, it looks distinct just because they designed it like that. But from what I've read, just for some technical terms, there was like a font analysis done on this, and we'll put the link up on the video. You should see it right now through Magic. You'll see that they made the letters, when they're small, they made them easy to see, particularly in several ways, and one of which I found interesting was they call the eyes of the letters. So if you look at like a lowercase a or an e, you have a tail, like on the A, like a lowercase top, and on the E, that's on the bottom. And they increase the distance between those so that you can tell from far away what kind of letter it is. It's not just like an O or something like that, or confuse your eyes. I think that design does fit very well on the smaller watch, but when you do blow it up, I think your issue is that consistency is nice, but it just doesn't look as unique because it's just not that stereotypically or historically Apple-like font, which is a little bit more classy. This looks a little less, I don't know, it just feels like it lost a little bit of its identity. I don't know if that's the impression that you're getting as I am.
Yeah, I mean, I currently love the fonts that are there, and it'll be sad, but hopefully this is just one of those off-ball rumors that don't turn out to be true. But, they'll make the change and we'll all live with it. Okay, so what else is coming to iOS 9? Well, this is supposed to be focused on, once we got the font, disappointments out of the way, iOS 9 and the new OS X is supposed to be focused on quality over quantity of new features.
I thought it's always quality. I thought they always have quality releases. Is there
I
no
don't, I
problem?
don't, I really don't understand. These people are supposed to be like the brightest people in the tech field working for Apple, and I'm sure they have tons of people in quality assurance testing all of this software. I don't know. I don't know why you have to have a release focused on quality when quality should be baked into the product from day one. Do they not test these things in other releases? Do they not test as extensively? Again, these are supposed to be the best and brightest people in the tech industry.
If you want to take it aside, do you think it's the timeline? They have to do this every year. I think that's like marketing or just to keep people excited. Every WWC has to have a new release. Is the issue they're going too fast?
I guess. I mean, if you focus on time and you have to have a release once a year, then yeah, I guess there is some sort of internal struggle between time and the number of features that Apple forces them to put in to make it feel fresh and exciting. So the tech world doesn't go like, oh, well, they added 2 new features, big whoop. Um, so yeah, but I don't know. But having said that, Snow Leopard is my favorite version of OS 10, OS X, whatever you want to call it. Technically, you're not supposed to call it OS X. But Snow Leopard 10.6, when they focused on quality and took Leopard, rewrote it from the ground up, Snow Leopard will always be my favorite operating system. It was just smooth, quick, fast, and I'm really hoping that that's what these changes bring to iOS and to OS X.
So basically, they want to make it like Windows 10, where it just works
Yeah.
and works
Windows
better.
10.
Works better on Macs
I
than.
don't know. Yeah, that was one person's review.
Alright.
So moving on. Some of the other things that may be coming to iOS 9, keep in mind that these are all rumors. Mass transit directions for Apple Maps. Yay.
What is that? That sounds like magic.
They've been acquiring a lot of different companies over the past couple of years to flesh out their Maps app, and adding in transit directions will be huge. Currently, one of the main reasons why I use Google Maps over Apple Maps on my iOS devices, I should say, is because Apple does not have built-in transit. So a welcome change, but yes, something that should have been in iOS 1, if you will.
Correct. They did release
All
an
right.
app that was not like the competition, which is extremely strange. But that's like one of the few times they've done that, I will admit.
There's rumors of some interesting changes coming to the stale iPad legacy iOS software. One of the two main big things is going to be split screen view, supposedly. Yes, like Windows. Windows already has it. Blah blah blah.
No, I was gonna say that sounds amazing. That sounds new, but now you've like shattered my dreams. I thought it was like first. I thought they came first with this.
Your sarcasm is overwhelming. So supposedly with these split screen view, you'll be able to divide apps into thirds or halves, which I think is the right level of fractions, if you will.
Especially on a 12-inch screen, if that is coming, right?
Yeah, that whole iPad Pro thing, we'll see if that comes out. Supposedly there's going to be a pair of 12-inch iPads. They're codenamed J98 and J99, whatever that means, with enhanced industrial design, supposedly. But when I saw Marston's it was a 12-inch Surface, right? And I said, why would you have a 12-inch tablet? That makes no sense.
Mm-hmm. So it'll make sense when they do that, right?
No, I still think that the 9.7 is ideal. I'm not a fan of the iPad mini, and I probably won't be a fan of the iPad Pro. But in Tim Cook's Apple, it's all about giving you choices now instead of one size fits all under Steve Jobs. Another big change coming to iPad, supposedly, is the ability to have multi-user support. So currently, once you're logged in as an iPad, you have one iCloud account, one iTunes account, and if you want to switch out of those, it's a headache. So this will hopefully bring multiple users, where if a family is sharing an iPad, I mean, in my ideal world, why doesn't every member of the family just have their own iPad, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's a gap, what we like to call in software development. The competition's had it for a few years, and they just didn't get to it. I feel like it should have been there a while ago, and I think they knew that, right?
Yeah. A lot of people have been complaining about it, so hopefully, this just closes some of the more gaps. All right, that's really it for iOS 9. There's a couple other things going on, like old devices will be optimized to use it, which is important if you're still on an old device. But, I think it's time to upgrade. Wouldn't you agree, Marcin?
Yeah, I do. I do. Although we are talking as snobbish Americans, which are extremely rich, and we do have emerging markets which do like Apple products. Some of them, and they do not tend to buy the newer stuff if they can't afford it. So I feel they'd like to at least be on the new software. At least Apple would like to push a consistent experience because I'm guessing there's developer features, so some apps might not work as well. Let's say if you're stuck on iOS 8 or 7, I'm thinking, especially with the Swift programming language maybe getting updated, if that's another thing we'll talk about, or I don't think there's much to say about that.
Right. So moving on to OS X 10, if you will, OS X 10, OS X, or OS 10.
Just,
Marcin will cut that for me.
yes, I'm cutting it right now. Go ahead, Nick.
Thanks for cutting it, Marcin. Uh, Moving on to OS 10, we have again that quality focus. So we're not going to see many new features, but we're going to see a focus on quality to hopefully build a stable operating system. Even though it's currently stable, hopefully it'll be quicker and smoother. And there are bugs here and there that hopefully will get worked out. One of the main things that they're talking about is this notification of rootless security, where supposedly even at the admin level, there are certain things that you may not be able to change and alter. Hopefully an increase in security, which there's been a lot of reports coming out over the past couple of years about how vulnerable Apple's operating system is to a couple of different hacks. So I'm sure that'll be a welcome change. They're also adding this rootless, feature to iOS, which will destroy the jailbreaking community for about 1 week until they find a workaround.
Somehow figure it out, right? They
Right.
usually
They
always
always
do.
they always mind. They always find a way. iCloud Drive, which is this strange concept where they'll take notes, reminders, and calendars and sync it supposedly faster than IMAP. I believe that if you're using non-iCloud accounts for those things, such as notes, reminders, and calendars, that it'll somehow sync it through iCloud.
I think they'll want.
Not,
I think they'll want to get you on an iCloud account. I think that's the idea, right? Because it sounds like they'll run both systems, but it's like a conversion from what we're hearing. That once you first turn on this 10.11 Gala version and you turn on Notes, it'll ask if you'd like to transfer.
right, and I mean it's always been confusing. I used to work at Apple, as I'm sure our viewers know. It was always confusing when people used to add, Yahoo accounts and Gmail accounts and AOL accounts to the iPhone, and then they'd create a new note, and they wouldn't know why it didn't show up on their phone or their iPad, and the reason is because they created that new note under their Yahoo account or their Gmail account, and they didn't create that note on their iCloud account, so of course it didn't sync unless you had syncing through those other accounts. So it's always very confusing with notes, calendars, reminders, stuff like that, how it syncs between the two when you're using third-party email. I personally stick with iCloud for everything, and it all works perfect. So we're also rumored to see some changes to Apple TV, either hardware or software or both. There's rumors about both of them. The hardware is definitely in need for a change. I think the current one is at least 3 or 4 years old. It works perfectly, I would say. It doesn't get hung up, doesn't freeze. But if we're expanding the software of Apple TV to include stuff like a rumored app store, which will bring a whole bunch of new apps, a new interface, it may need some faster hardware. So we may see the launch of both hardware and software for the Apple TV. Very excited about that. Apple TV has become a huge part of my life, really, for Netflix, HBO Go, AirPlaying, which is huge in my life. So I'm very excited about those changes. They're much welcomed. And finally, we will see, hopefully, at least a hint or a release of some watch updates. Some of the things that have been talked about is a native SDK for developers, allowing them to integrate more closely with some system functionality. One of the rumors around there is complications. So those little things that you can add onto the watch face, possibly there'll be third-party complications. I heard one possibly from Twitter where you'll be able to see a little number of how many mentions you have, or if it's a bigger complication, you'll be able to see like your most recent mention on the watch face. I don't know how helpful that's going to be for something as Twitter, as the use case has shown, but I'm definitely interested in, maybe weather. I currently use Dark Sky as a great, great, great weather app for the Apple Watch. It tells you very specifically. I get notifications something like a light drizzle will start in 5 minutes and last for 45 minutes. So that's really cool. And being able to see maybe a percentage on my watch face of the chance of rain in the next hour would be really helpful. So I'm very excited for that. Hopefully with this native SDK, apps will also be much faster on the watch, which will hopefully solve some of the main issues that people have, including myself, about apps launching a little bit slower than they should be on the watch. So to summarize, we'll see some just iOS 9, OS 10, possibly some Apple TV updates, possibly some Apple Watch updates. WWDC will take place on June 8th to June 12th. Likely the Apple keynote will be on June 8th, and Clash Tech will be covering it extensively. Marcin and I, as though Marcin doesn't find this event as exciting as I do, we will both be extensively covering this on clashtech.com. So look forward to that in the next couple of weeks. And that's all I have, Marcin. Thank you for joining us on this week's Clash Cast.
Thank you, Nick.